The unforgiving late afternoon sun caused the asphalt of the rural road to shimmer as Lila Turner, only 10 years old, walked home from school. Her steps slowed when she saw the gleaming red Shelby GT 500 Mustang parked on the side of the road, its hood raised like an open mouth waiting for help. A man in a sharp suit, looking out of place in this quiet rural town, was pacing frantically beside the car, speaking angrily into his phone. "I don't care what the tow costs. I've been stranded here for 2 hours. I've got a meeting with the governor in—" The man glanced at his gold watch. "Less than 3 hours, for God's sake." Lila hesitated. Aunt Linda always warned her not to talk to strangers, especially those who didn't belong in their small, predominantly black community, 2 hours outside of Boston. But the man's frustration was palpable. Lila shifted the weight of her worn backpack. Inside, not just her books, but the small toolkit Uncle David, a mechanic, had given her. He'd always said everyone should know the basics of fixing engines. Have you ever been caught in a situation like this? A problem too big for the experts, but just right for someone who's been taught to trust their instincts? Stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe to see how Lila's small act of kindness could change everything. "Excuse me, sir," Lila called, approaching cautiously. "Need some help with your car?" James Carter, CEO of Carter Enterprises and owner of half of Boston's commercial real estate, turned in surprise. The irritation on his face quickly turned to condescension when he saw the small figure with colorful braids, faded shorts, and an MIT t-shirt that was clearly too big for her. "That's very kind of you, sweetheart, but this is a high-performance vehicle. I need a real mechanic." Lila shrugged, stepping closer to peer under the hood. "My uncle has a garage and has been teaching me about cars since I learned to walk. I can at least take a look." Before James could protest, she had already dropped her backpack on the ground and was leaning over the engine with surprising confidence. "Quick question. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below and tell us what you think about Lila's skills so far. This story is about to take a wild turn." "When did the problem start?" she asked, all professional. James sighed, realizing he didn't have much to lose. "The engine started overheating about 40 minutes ago, and then it just died." "Did you smell anything sweet, like syrup?" James blinked, surprised. "Yes, now that you mention it." "How did you know?" "Cooling system." Lila pointed to a small puddle under the car that James hadn't even noticed. "It's leaking coolant. That's why it overheated." As she spoke, James watched the girl with growing curiosity. There was something strangely familiar about her, the way she furrowed her brow slightly in concentration, how her intelligent eyes scanned the engine methodically. "What's your name?" he asked suddenly. "Lila. Lila Turner." She held out her hand, stained with grease from the inspection. He shook it hesitantly. "James Whitaker." "Nice to meet you, Mr. Whitaker. I think I can fix this temporarily." Lila opened her backpack and took out a small metal case. "Uncle David makes me carry an emergency kit. You never know when someone might need help on the road." James watched, fascinated, as the girl worked with impressive efficiency, locating the leak in the radiator hose and applying a special tape. "That should hold until you get to town," she explained, "but you'll need to add water to replace the lost coolant." It was when Lila raised her hand to brush her hair away from her face that James saw it. A ring with an emerald green stone set in the antique gold, held on her finger with thread wrapped around the base to keep it from slipping off her small finger. James's world seemed to stop. The sun glinted off the stone, reflecting an internal pattern he would recognize anywhere, a small, crescent-shaped imperfection. A ring he had given 12 years ago to a little girl named Lila at an orphanage called Little Angels, days before it was mysteriously closed. "That ring," James began, his voice suddenly trembling. "It's very unusual." Lila looked down at her hand. "It was my mother's. I mean my adoptive mother, Sophie. She died last year." A shadow of sadness crossed her face. "She said it was a symbol of an important promise." "May I ask where Sophie got this ring?" Lila shrugged. "She never told me exactly. She just said it belonged to someone special, and that one day I would understand its meaning." James tried to pull himself together, offering to drive Lila home as a thank you. She hesitated only briefly before accepting. During the 15-minute drive, James asked seemingly casual questions about her life, where she went to school, how long she had lived there, who she had lived with since her adoptive mother had died. I live with my Aunt Linda and Uncle David, Lila explained. They took me in when Sophie died. Have you always lived here? James asked, trying to keep his voice casual as he gripped the steering wheel tightly. Since I was 3. Before that, Lila hesitated. Sophie didn't talk about it much. I know I was adopted from an orphanage called Little Angels. It closed soon after. James almost lost control of the car. Little Angels? Are you sure? Yes. Why? Do you know it? James took a deep breath. I did, a long time ago. As they approached a modest but well-kept house, James stopped the car. Lila thanked him and said goodbye, but before she could get out, he handed her a card. Lila, if you ever need anything, anything at all, please call me. The girl accepted the card with a curious look and got out of the car. James watched as she ran toward the house, the ring sparkling in the sun. His hands trembled as he picked up the phone to call his private investigator. What Lila couldn't know as she waved one last time to the stranger in his expensive car was that this chance encounter had just set in motion events that would reveal secrets kept for more than a decade. Secrets that connected a billion-dollar empire, a mysteriously closed orphanage, and a black girl with an extraordinary ability to fix broken things. If this story of unlikely coincidences and hidden connections has piqued your curiosity, be sure to sign up to find out how a simple ring would become the key to unlocking a web of power, prejudice, and a truth that would change lives forever. James spent 3 sleepless nights staring at enlarged photos of the emerald ring his investigator had captured. The jewel he had given little Lila at the Little Angels orphanage as a promise that he would come back for her, a promise he never kept. In his office at Carter Enterprises, he examined documents scattered across his desk. 12 years ago, his father, Samuel Carter, had bought the Little Angels property for a fraction of its value, citing financial irregularities. Coincidentally, James was named CEO shortly thereafter. Mr. Carter, Mr. Evans from Legal, is here with the Horizon Project documents, his assistant announced. The Horizon Project, a luxury complex under construction on the very site where the orphanage had once stood. James quickly tucked the reports away before Evans entered. The Little Angels acquisition documents are here, Evans said, although I don't understand why we're revisiting old business. Your father was quite specific about keeping these documents on file. My father is retired in Florida, James replied dryly, and I run the company now. As he examined the documents, James discovered suspicious bank transfers and, more disturbingly, a list of children who had been reallocated when the orphanage closed. Lila Turner's name was circled in red with the note, Special Case. Contact HW. His investigator Ramirez called with news, I found Sophie Turner. Car accident last year. Brakes failed. Suspicious circumstances. What about the adoption records? Missing. Officially, Lila Turner never existed at Little Angels. Find out everything you can about her current family, James ordered. Meanwhile, Lila was working in the small workshop behind her aunt and uncle's house. The place was her refuge, tools organized on the walls, the comforting smell of oil and grease. Did you manage to fix the old radio? David asked, entering the workshop. Lila smiled, lifting the 1950s radio. I did it. Just had to reconnect a few wires. David affectionately ruffled his niece's braids. You have a gift, girl. I've never seen anyone understand machines like you. Uncle, do you think my mom would be proud? Sophie was so proud of you she could have burst, Lila. She twirled the ring on her finger. I met a rich man the other day. His car broke down and I fixed it. He recognized my ring. David froze. What man? James Whitaker. He gave me his card. Lila showed them the card. He seemed strange when he saw my ring. David's face paled. He exchanged glances with Linda, who appeared at the door. Lila, dear, Linda said tensely, remember when we promised to tell you the truth about Sophie when you were older? I think that time has come. That night, Lila heard the hidden story, how Sophie, a nurse at the orphanage, had run away with her when the orphanage suddenly closed, how they had changed their names and gone into hiding for years, always looking over their shoulders. "Your mother left this for you," Linda said, handing her a yellowed envelope. "She made us promise to give it to you only if someone from the Whitaker family showed up." With trembling hands, Lila began to read, "My dear Lila, if you are reading this, someone has found you. There are things you need to know." At James's apartment, Ramirez called again. "Sir, someone else is investigating Little Angels. A reporter named Tommy Clark." "What does he know?" "Quite a lot, and he has a theory about why her father was interested in certain children at the orphanage, specifically children with unusual talents." The next day, a black SUV pulled up in front of Lila's school. Two men in suits watched as she left with her friends. "Is that her? The girl with the emerald ring?" "Yes. Mr. Whitaker Sr. wants to see her immediately." What they didn't know was that David was parked across the street. He took out his cell phone and dialed a number Sophie had left for emergencies. "Tommy Clark." "It's about Little Angels," David said, "and a girl with an emerald ring. I found the proof you're looking for." At Whitaker Enterprises, James stared at his father, Samuel, who had flown in from Florida without warning. "What's this about reviewing the Little Angels documents?" Samuel demanded. "I thought that matter was closed. I found Lila Turner, Dad, the girl with the emerald ring." Samuel paled. "So what? Just another orphan. What matters is Project Horizon. Billions are at stake. What was so special about that girl?" Samuel laughed dryly. "Don't you really understand what's at stake? Some children are valuable. They have talents that can be exploited." "She fixes things," James said slowly. "She can look at broken machines and just understand them." Samuel's smile was icy. "Think of the military applications, the patents, the power. Why do you think we bought that orphanage?" What neither Whitaker realized was that Lila was already reading Sophie's letter, discovering the truth about her past and her special talents, and more importantly, discovering why the emerald ring was so valuable. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry, but a key to documents that could bring down an empire. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fall into place. On one side, a powerful corporation ready to protect its secrets at any cost. On the other, a 10-year-old girl with an extraordinary talent and a ring worth far more than its weight in emeralds. Between them, a man trying to decide which side of the story he wanted to be on. The conference room on the 50th floor of Whitaker Enterprises was buzzing with nervous executives. Samuel Whitaker had called an emergency meeting, his normally controlled face now contorted into a mask of fury. "Where is my son?" Samuel demanded, pounding the massive glass table. "James should have been here an hour ago." As if summoned by his words, the double doors swung open. James entered calmly, accompanied by a woman in a suit whom no one recognized. "Sorry I'm late, Dad," James said with a calmness that made Samuel frown. "This is Federal Prosecutor Rachel Young. She has some questions about Project Prometheus." Samuel's face paled. Project Prometheus, the code name for the secret program to identify and exploit children with special talents. A name that should never be mentioned in public, let alone to federal authorities. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Samuel hissed. James walked over to the large screen on the wall and connected his laptop. "Something I should have done a long time ago. The truth about Little Angels and the other 5 institutions you've closed down over the last 15 years. The lights went out, and the screen came to life with documents, photographs, and reports. Detailed records of 48 special children identified, tested, and exploited by Whitaker Enterprises. You stole confidential documents." Samuel tried to regain his composure. "That's corporate crime, industrial espionage. Documents evidencing far worse crimes," James replied. "Unauthorized experiments on minors, falsification of adoption records, bribery of public officials, intimidation of witnesses." A video began playing on the screen, security footage from 12 years ago. A young nurse, whom James now knew to be Sophie Turner, fleeing in the middle of the night with a child in her arms. Next, a clip of Samuel instructing security guards, "Find her. The girl has significant military potential. We can't lose her." 3 Little Angels employees died in accidents in the weeks that followed. James continued relentlessly, including Sophie's brother, who had started asking questions. "You have no idea of the implications," Samuel began, but was cut off when the door swung open again. Lila Turner entered, accompanied by Uncle David and a man carrying a professional camera, Tommy Clark of the Boston Globe. "Lila," James said softly, "you didn't have to come." "Yes, I did," she replied with surprising dignity for someone so young. "Sophie always said that one day I would have to face the men who made us run." Samuel looked at the girl, his expression shifting from shock to cold calculation. "So you're the prodigious Project 17? I didn't imagine you'd be so small." "And you're the man who killed my mother," Lila replied, her gaze unflinching. "Her brakes didn't fail by accident, did they?" Samuel smiled, regaining his confidence. "Proving anything would be impossible. And you're forgetting who I am. One phone call, and all of this disappears." That's when Lila opened her backpack and took out the emerald ring. With deft fingers, she turned the stone, revealing a secret compartment. From inside, she took out a tiny device. "Sophie was smarter than you thought," she said. "This is a storage device she hid in the ring. It contains backup copies of all the Little Angels records, including recordings of your meetings with military doctors about harnessing children with enhanced cognitive abilities for strategic applications." Samuel Carter, for the first time in his life, was speechless. "This is being broadcast live right now," Tommy Clark explained, pointing to his camera. "To our studio and directly to social media platforms. Over 10,000 people are already watching." James walked over to his father, keeping his voice low. "It's over. The prosecutor has a deal for me. Full cooperation in exchange for immunity. As for you, well, we'll let a jury decide." As federal agents entered the room to arrest Samuel Carter, Lila approached the man who had destroyed so many lives. "My mother taught me that broken machines can be fixed," she said calmly. "But broken people need to fix themselves. I hope you get that chance in prison." Samuel was led away, his empire crumbling live for the world to see. In the days that followed, Carter Enterprises' stock plummeted. Investigations revealed decades of unethical practices, illegal experimentation, and systematic corruption. James watched it all with a complex mix of relief and regret. He had lost his family and his inheritance, but he had found something more valuable: his integrity. In the courthouse, as Samuel awaited his preliminary hearing, Lila approached James on the steps outside. "What happens now?" she asked, the emerald ring sparkling on her finger, no longer a symbol of secrets, but of truth revealed. James looked out at the city skyline, at the skyscrapers that had been built with money stained by exploitation and suffering. Among them, the gleaming Carter Building, which would soon lose its name. Now, he said, we rebuild, not just buildings, but lives. What none of them could have predicted at that moment was how that rebuilding would transform not just their lives, but an entire community. An empire built on exploitation was crumbling, but from the ashes, something new and unexpected was about to be born. Something that would forever change the way the world viewed exceptional talent in unlikely places. 5 years have passed since the day Lila Turner exposed the truth about the Carter Empire. On a sunny spring morning, she walked through the halls of the newly opened Turner Center for Young Inventors, a sprawling complex of labs, workshops, and classrooms, built on the same site where the Little Angels Orphanage once stood. The sensors in the East Wing are still malfunctioning. Lila, now 15, told the group of engineers following her. Her experienced eyes identified problems in complex systems with the same ease with which she had detected a leak in a Mustang's radiator years ago. At the back of the center, James Carter talked with investors, his suit replaced by jeans and a button-down shirt. The former billionaire heir had donated his entire personal fortune to found the Prometheus Initiative, no longer an exploration project, but a program dedicated to identifying talented young people from marginalized communities and providing them with opportunities. "We discovered 23 children with exceptional talents just this quarter," James explained. "Each one receives a full scholarship and personalized mentoring. No contracts, no exploitation, no secrets." James's transformation surprised many, especially former executives at Carter Enterprises. The man who had once been heir to an empire built on exploitation was now dedicating his life to repairing damage and creating genuine opportunities. "Lila's about to publish her third patent," said David, who now ran the center's engineering program. Harvard, MIT, and Stanford are already fighting over who will recruit her. On the center's main wall, an exhibit documented the entire story. Photographs of the orphanage, newspaper clippings about the fall of Carter Enterprises, and a headline that changed everything. Carter Empire collapses after teenage revelations. Meanwhile, in a medium-security federal prison, Samuel Carter stared at the walls of his cell. The tycoon who once controlled billions and manipulated lives now spent his days in confinement, abandoned by former allies, his fortune confiscated, his name forever tarnished. He refuses to participate in any rehabilitation program, a guard commented. He still believes he'll get out of here and rebuild everything. The arrogance that had been his trademark was now just a sad caricature, an old man clinging to dreams of power that would never come true. That night, the Turner Center held its first major graduation ceremony. 12 young people from disadvantaged communities had completed the intensive 2-year program, each with job offers or college scholarships in hand. Lila, still too young to graduate but already recognized as a mentor by her older peers, took the stage to give a speech. "When I was 10, I fixed a stranger's car on the side of the road," she began, twirling the emerald ring on her finger. Now a symbol not of secrets, but of transformation. That small act of generosity exposed a web of exploitation, but it also paved the way for something new and better. James watched from the back of the auditorium, his eyes watering. The girl who had destroyed his old world had, in fact, given him a purpose that no fortune could buy. "My adoptive mother, Sophie, used to say that broken machines can be fixed, but broken systems need to be redesigned from the ground up," Lila continued. "That's what we're doing here. Not just fixing what was wrong, but building something entirely new." The next day, Lila received an unexpected letter. The sender, Emily Carter, Samuel's daughter who had renounced her family name after the scandal and now worked as a federal prosecutor. "We found 5 more orphanages with programs similar to Little Angels," the letter read. "Thanks to your testimony and the evidence you gathered, we've been able to identify and protect 37 more children. Some have talents like yours. When you're ready, they'd love to meet you." As Lila read the letter to James, Uncle David, and Aunt Linda, a sense of closure hung in the air. What had begun with a chance encounter on the side of the road had become a quiet revolution, transforming not only their lives, but an entire system that had thrived on the exploitation of the vulnerable. "You know what's ironic?" James said. "Samuel always said he was building a legacy, and he really did, just not the way he imagined it." Lila looked out the window at the children playing in the center's gardens, free from the kind of manipulation that had nearly defined her own destiny. "Real power was never in the buildings or bank accounts," she replied. "It was in the ability to make a difference in other people's lives." That evening, as the sun set over the Turner Center, a new sign was unveiled at the entrance. "Every talent deserves to flourish. Every child deserves freedom." It was a promise for the future, built on the ashes of a past they refused to repeat. If this story of justice, resilience, and transformation touched your heart, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more stories about how small acts of courage can change entire systems, and how true reparation isn't just about punishing evil, but about building something better in its place.